We were just sort of briefly touching on it there when we were talking about creating an interesting game for the neutral in regard to the armchair viewer. There's been so much publicity, I'm sure you would have seen at a high level this week with the £5 billion, yes, £5 billion, that's not a mistake, Premier League TV deal. And obviously there's the Football League one. We were discussing it in the green room beforehand. Is there a little bit of a surprise that there isn't anything going on like that with the conference?
I think I'm surprised there's not at least a highlights package. I think that it's already pretty good that we get the live coverage on BT Sport. I'd like to see more games. I think there's room in the schedule for more games. I mean, there was a rather large gap, maybe a month back, where there didn't seem to have been a game on TV for ages. And I can't see what BT are really showing that's better than that. So I'd like to see more matches go on, but certainly they need a highlights package in there, because it seems silly, if you've got the rights to the games, why not extend that and have coverage every Saturday night or every Sunday?
But of course, at the same time, we here at Non-League Chat certainly have no problem with that, because that has allowed us to bring you regular highlights from Woking, from Forest Green Rovers, and I'm delighted to say we'll be adding Concord Rangers and Eastleigh to that list within the next week, which is obviously great for us, but at the same time, to have a show, say, on a Saturday night, immediately giving all the reaction to potentially the conference games, Gary, you reckon, you were saying that would get a perfectly decent reach and audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there'll be a lot of people that will be interested in it. There's a lot of non-league fans out there, not just at the conference level, but right across the whole, scope of non-league football, grassroots football. I think it'll be very, very worthwhile to get a package together. Pick a game that you're going to show as the main highlights game, somewhere near the top of the table, or a relegation scrap, as the season's coming to a conclusion. And I think there's a perfectly good argument for putting together a highlights package, as Will quite rightly says.
Welcome back to Non-League Chat. So we were just discussing the coverage of non-league in regard to television. Jacob, what is your opinions on the way the non-league game is covered in that wider sort of sphere?
I think it's better than it was. I think it's great that there is finally some interest in it, but I think that's also come along with the fact there's been so many big ex-league teams come down. I mean, now if you're putting Bristol Rovers live on TV, that's going to get a huge viewing, but for the level it is, it's going to be quite a big one. So I think they'd be surprised at the viewing figures they would be. I think that a lot of people would be interested in it, but at the same time, if Bristol go up, if Grimsby go up, if Wrexham go up, and a few smaller teams come down, are you going to have as many people watching it? Maybe not, but I think if they've got the rights, they should do all they can to put a highlights package together.
At the same time, though, when a club like Crawley or Fleetwood sort of runs their way through the league by spending plenty of money as well, which helps by all accounts, inevitably someone's going to come down. And so there's always going to be a certain number of ex-league clubs in here. You look at Cambridge and Luton went up last season, but then they're replaced by Bristol and Torquay, who are arguably pretty much equally as big in terms of support and size of the club. Yeah,
and there's so many clubs that are already down there who are struggling to get back, like Wrexham. I mean, we've reached a point now where at least half the league must be ex-Football League clubs, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's very much starting to look like a League 3, isn't it, if you see what I mean?
Yeah. And that effect is surely only going to continue, because we see with, say, a side like, oh goodness me, man, Ebbsfleet just put a load of money in the Conference South. Now, they might not get to the Football League immediately, but they could well do in 5 years, and that's going to mean that another team comes down. And unless they do a Hereford and they are extinct, there's going to be yet another Football League team in there.
I think clubs like that need to be careful, though, that they don't, it doesn't sort of implode on them. And we were saying in the green room beforehand that it is a little bit cyclical. Jake, you were making the thing of Farnborough a few years ago. They ploughed a lot of money into the club to get into the conference and push to get towards the Football League, and now they're really struggling in the relegation places in the Conference South. So I think teams have to be careful of money that they get and how they plough it into the club and how they spend it.
And we had Liam Daish on from Nuneaton, who obviously are down there after a very promising start last season. They lost Malt, their key striker, other key players. Jacob, do you think that this effect with part-time clubs is cyclical, or can a part-time club establish themselves as being, as Woking are trying to do, firmly a conference side?
I think it's difficult. It's very difficult. I think you might be seeing that at Woking, the fact they've had to have a smaller squad to have the more quality and less quantity. And as soon as they picked up a few injuries or suspensions, it becomes a lot more difficult for them. I don't think it's impossible that a team could be there or thereabouts by the end of the season, but I think you are always going to see the full-time teams hanging around the top of the league.